The only thing we've never been in compliance with is the fakeness of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? And I said fakeness because the news media is here. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it. I'm about to get fired up in this press conference right now.
Oh, I love it, dude. This is Greg Locke. If you're unfamiliar, he's a hate preacher, a televangelist, a pastor that screams about just the most ridiculous stuff on planet Earth. Anyway, he's being sued again. So I talked about a lawsuit that was filed against him supposedly a little while back, but that never formulated into anything. That never materialized. I think he might have made that lawsuit up. I know a lot of people in the legal field, and they called around to the county and the city and everything, and no one could find a trace of this. It seemed like a ploy to get his congregants to donate money to him. Well, this one is real. This is a real lawsuit, and it has potential real ramifications. So he did this supposed press conference on this lawsuit recently, and I wanted to listen to just a couple excerpts from his sermon, I guess you'd call it, because, oh my God, it's so entertaining. His voice literally cracked, okay? His voice cracked.
Stick that in your pipe and smoke it. I'm about to get fired up in this press conference.
His voice cracks. I love it to death. It's so funny. I wish I could do that on command, make my voice crack. He's getting super emotional. Okay, so let's talk about it. March 26, 2023, he goes on stage and he says this.
This is the one and only press conference we're doing about this lawsuit foolishness. And we're going to end up winning all of them. I can promise. We will win every one of them hands down. Constitutionally, they don't have a leg to stand on.
That's inaccurate. So I have a copy of the lawsuit, and I looked through it a little bit, and from what I could tell, here's the problem. He bought his property 10 years ago, I think, or something, maybe a little bit longer, give or take 10 years. And when he bought it, it was in a residential area, right? And just outside of city limits. It's not zoned for business. Now, it's not illegal technically for him to hold a business event there, like conferences and stuff like that, because there are so few regulations being a part of a county rather than a city. But it's causing no end of problems. The noise is entirely too much because he operates out of a canvas tent. It's a circus tent. It's not even like a building. The noise is a problem. There's a parking problem and a traffic problem. It's like an endless barrage of issues that he's brought to the community and the houses around him. So basically, they brought this lawsuit against Greg Locke. The county did. I think it's Wilson County that's suing him right now to try to push him to move to another area. That seems to be the end goal here. In fact, they even told him, apparently, according to Greg, Wilson County said, we will pay for you to move to a new area. We'll pay for the relocation effort. But our roads are not built for 6,000 different cars coming here, a few times a year. This is a mega church, okay? And they hold regular conferences 3 times a year or something, more even. Their roads are not built for it. And they don't have the police force to direct traffic for 6,000 cars. It's not built for this. The infrastructure is not built for this. So they said, we will pay for your relocation. You get a new property, we'll pay for your stuff to move it. And you know what his response was? He says, this pastor's not for sale. This pastor's not for sale. Like they're trying to do some backroom corrupt deal with him. It's a joke. So anyways, keep listening to what he says here because this lawsuit gets pretty deep.
We are going to win all of these lawsuits.
They're not. They're not going to win any of these lawsuits, almost certainly. They wouldn't have brought these lawsuits against him if they thought that they were going to lose them. There was a stop work order on his property because apparently he and some of his church members are doing a lot of the construction, and it's led to a complete mess. They caused a huge mess out of the draining systems, caused it to flood the neighbors' yards regularly anytime it rains. There are all kinds of issues here. There's loud sawing and buzzing in residential areas. It's an issue, and he refuses to address it. So they sued his ass.
The first, 8 or 10 indictments, whatever you want to call them, allegations.
They're not indictments, okay? This is a lawsuit, and it was a statement of fact, probably is what he's referring to. It's the opener in a lawsuit that describes, the issues at hand and what's happening.
Are about a building that we have not met in over 3 years.
Okay, it's still causing problems for everybody. Don't care if you've met in it or not.
You see, they're trying to build a pattern that we've not been in compliance. The only thing we've never been in compliance with is the fakeness of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? And I said fakeness because the news media is here.
Like anybody cares if he talks about COVID being fake. Fine, get your ass killed. Go ahead. I don't give a shit anymore. Well, I do. Like, I don't want anybody to die. You know, I want everybody's life to be saved. Unfortunately, we've tried, okay? We've tried. I have done everything that I could to, like, broadcast to everybody that this guy is getting people killed. I don't want anyone to die. Life is the most precious thing in the universe, in my opinion. And every premature death is a loss. It's somebody's life, somebody's personality, somebody's family that's completely torn apart because they lost their lives. It's important to me that we save people's lives. But you know what? He's refused to figure that out. He doesn't seem to recognize the importance of human life. So, okay, fine. I tried. I did my best. I can honestly lay my head down at the end of the night and say, I did my best. I tried to get people to take COVID seriously, and this dude's refusing to let it get through his thick skull. So, okay, here we sit.
Fakeness because the news media is here. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it. I'm about to get fired up in this press conference right now.
Dude, I love how his voice cracks. It's so entertaining to me. Okay.
You better pray out, calm down. Honey, pray for me right now. I'm telling you, I'm about to get fired up. Lawsuit said they're going to tear our buildings down, shut our church down. The gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Wilson County, Tennessee won't prevail against this church. I can promise you that right now. They'll bring tanks and Cobra helicopters in this parking lot before they keep me from preaching with this microphone and filling this church up.
Okay, well, that's honestly, like, really concerning to me that he said such a thing, because that's an option. That's a choice. That's something that people have chosen to do in the past. Anybody remember Waco, Texas? Branch Davidians? David Koresh? I don't know if you knew this, but if you're on YouTube and you're kind of skimming through and you want to get more precise, click on the little round red ball there and drag up, and you can get a lot more precise. You can just grab the bottom part and you skim through very precisely that way. If you don't remember what happened in Waco, Texas, basically David Koresh was amassing a stockpile of weapons illegally, and ATF caught wind of this and told him to turn their stuff over. And guess what? He refused, and they sent tanks in. This isn't a joke, okay? This is real.
1993, tanks rolled in and punched holes in its walls and deposited nearly 400 canisters of tear gas inside the building. Several hours later, a fire broke out.
This far out in the country without fire hydrants, you have to haul all of your water. It's just a very bad scenario here at this point.
You know, David Koresh didn't think that this was going to happen. He apparently believed himself to be completely immune because he's a religious organization in the United States. And I get that these people believe that they're above the law, but they're not. They're not. They're not above the law. Not always, at the very least. So Greg Locke says they're going to have to bring tanks in. They've done that. Are you sure that this is the hill that you literally want to die on? Are you sure that this is the hill that you want your congregants to die on? Because that's an option. I'm dead serious.
County, Tennessee won't prevail against this church. I can promise you that right now. They'll bring tanks and Cobra helicopters in this parking lot before they keep me from preaching with this microphone and filling this church up.
They've done that before, and guess what? Behind every law in the United States is a gun. It's backed up with force. We live in a society, and as members of this society, we must follow the rules. And if we don't, there must be consequences. There has to be a threat of force backing every single law, or people wouldn't do it. You know what happens if you don't pay child support? You go to jail. You know what happens if you don't pay money back to somebody that you owed it to and you were court ordered to, restitution or whatever? You go to jail. There's a threat of force behind every law. He thinks he's just going to ignore the judgment from Wilson County. Okay, but this is not the first time it's happened. I wouldn't be so sure you're going to make it out of this, Greg, really. he continued on. So that clip, I actually got that from Friendly Atheist's Twitter account, Hemant Mehta. But I watched this whole thing on my Unfiltered YouTube channel. If you want to see it, you can check it out on my website, owenmorgan.com. Just search for like Greg Locke lawsuit or something. Or just go to my Telltale Unfiltered YouTube channel. You find it there. It's not uploaded quite yet as of the moment that I'm filming this live. But by the time this hits the air, it should be released. Listen to what he had to say here just a few minutes later.
Right? Plus, it's private property. We can really tear down some trees and burn some stuff if we want to. The real issue is we stir up demons and we burn witchcraft.
He thinks that people are after him because he bans witchcraft or whatever. He thinks that, like, the people suing him at Wilson County are, like, witches, apparently. He just lives in a fantasy.
So that's interesting that they try to get us on that. Then they want to go with the stormwater stuff.
Right, so stormwater stuff. Basically, there's been a drainage problem. Again, the guy doesn't seem to be getting professionals. I mean, don't quote me on this, but it appears from the outside with limited information as though it's just like his churchgoers that are helping with some construction and repairs and stuff. And there's some issue with like the drainage, where every time it rains, it floods all of the properties around him. Like, they don't seem to really know what they're doing here.
They say, well, he's causing flooding to the road. Watch this. Holy Ghost of God. If the next words that come out of my mouth are lying, ill-intentioned, misinformed, kill me on live camera in front of everybody in this room.
So you've got to believe that he's telling the truth here, right? Or that he believes that he's telling the truth at the very least, to have said something like that as a man of God. Except this isn't the first time he's done it, and he lied about it then. It seems pretty obvious to me that he's lying in this situation, but we'll get there. We'll get there. We got more clips to watch here, and I will establish for you through this video that he knew that he was lying here, and he knew that God wasn't going to strike him down despite the fact that he was lying. Keep listening.
Think I'm playing. You know why the road floods? Because Larry built that wall over there, and then on his side, you know what he did?
Larry is the neighbor, and he's got like this whole beef with him or whatever.
On his side, you know what he did? He gummed up the drainage ditch on his side, so that the water floods through on our side, floods the road 3 foot deep. He goes out, takes pictures and videos, sends it to...
Yeah, that was a little section I muted because he was doxing some people all through this, sending out their phone numbers and their addresses and their everything, dude. Straight up doxing people, and he called it doxing. He says, this ain't doxing because it's not an individual, but it actually was. Like, it was an individual. And the individual's phone number. Like, oh my God, dude. Anyways.
And the codes enforcement says, look what Greg Locke and Global Vision's doing to flood the road when we've never flooded it one time.
And so Greg Locke, basically what he's saying here is that Larry, his neighbor, is intentionally setting out to make Greg look bad by flooding the road himself. Larry flooded the road at will because he wanted to do it, and then he took pictures to show that Greg Locke is responsible for it. Like, that's just completely fabricated. That's really easy to prove. It's super easy to prove if that's true. It's completely made up. And even if it's not intentionally made up, it's misinformed. Greg Locke just said, if this is misinformed, strike me dead. But again, that's not the first time he's done that. Back in October 26, 2022, Greg Locke claimed to have received an email from Freemasons, some local Freemasons. I don't think there ever was an email, personally, because the name that he claimed to have received the email from was a name from a movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It was a name on, like, the grave in the end scene. Arch Stanton, I think, is the name. And he claims that this guy, this Freemason, Arch Stanton, who nobody has ever heard of, who isn't even on the member rolls at the local Freemason lodge or anything, threatened him for burning books. Greg Locke said he's going to hold a book burning, and he said, if you hold a book burning, we will have the Catholic diocese, the Freemasons, and a bunch of other people there, and we will stop you from burning books by force. Like anybody cares about Greg Locke's business or whatever. Yeah, I'm going to criticize him for burning books, but why would anybody step in the way of Greg Locke peacefully observing his right to peacefully protest? This is just insane, right? So Greg Locke claims to get this email from this alleged Arch Stanton guy, and, you know, the guy from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the movie. And while he's on stage reading the email, this happens.
He takes the next whole paragraph to tell me that it's a malicious fine for burning if we don't get a burn permit. We've already got all that covered. Okay, we don't care about your fines.
Wait, do you have it covered, or do you not care about the fines? Because it seems like if you don't have it covered, you should care about the fines, right?
We'll take an offer and pay your stupid fine.
So they don't have it covered. They're prepared to break the law. He's describing his intent to break the law here, right? Am I wrong?
Here we go. I strongly counsel you all right, let me get back to it here.
And here's where it gets real. Ready?
All right, if I'm lying, I'm dying. God strike me dead right now if I'm lying. Honey, come here and tell me I ain't crazy.
God strike me dead right now if I'm lying. Okay?
I'm telling you God's honest truth. God strike me dead right now if I'm exasperating the truth. I'm reading the email, and it is gone. I'm talking about right now. And I won't.
He claims this Arch Stanton guy is so rich and powerful, dude that doesn't even exist. He's so powerful that he can log into Greg's phone while he's on it and delete an email. And not only that, but remove it from his screen. Most email clients, it doesn't matter if you delete an email or not. You can delete it on any device or account or whatever. If it's loaded on screen, it will remain there in visual memory until it's removed from visual memory. So if it's on the screen, it will stay there until you swipe it off screen, and then you won't be able to pull it back up. So Greg Locke is saying he was looking at his phone, and not only did the Freemason Lodge delete the email from his account actively while he was reading it on stage, like anybody cares. Why would they delete an email like that? Not only did they do that, but they actually took control of his phone temporarily while he's on stage and closed the email app or something. Like, everything about this from beginning to end is fabricated and, in my opinion, completely staged. All of it. I don't believe that there even was an email. And if there was an email, I don't believe for a second that he was even reading, an email from somebody. He knew exactly what he wanted to communicate to his crowd before he pretended to have lost the email. And then, after pretending to have, had the email deleted from his phone while he's reading it, he says,
I'm telling you God's honest truth. God strike me dead right now if I'm exasperating the truth.
So that's not the first time he's done it or the last time he's done it. He doesn't seem to care if he says, God strike me dead right now. If he's lying or not, doesn't matter to him. He'll say it anyways. I think that's because he has something called an ends justify the means mentality. Now, ends justify the means mentality can manifest in a number of ways. The most famous way that I talk about is Jehovah's Witnesses' belief in theocratic warfare, is what they call it. It's the idea that you're allowed to lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, whatever, if it's in service to the Watchtower Society. If it's in service to God. And if it's in service to God, then it's in service to the Watchtower Society and vice versa, right? That's an ends justify the means mentality. That is the belief that you can do anything and it's justified. Even lie. Even tell God to strike you dead right there on the spot if you are not telling the truth. while you know that you're not telling the truth about that thing, and justify that thing anyways. Theocratic warfare, if it's in service to God, it's justified. Ends justify the means mentality. That's what that is. And in my opinion, it's one of two things. It's either Greg Locke has that mentality, that ends justify the means mentality, that theocratic warfare idea, or he knows his entire belief system's completely made up, fabricated from the ground up, and he doesn't worry about God striking him dead because he doesn't think there is a God or something. Like, I don't know. I'm on the fence. I don't know if Greg is a true believer or cynically using the people around him. It's hard to know. Let me know what you think. So anyways, that's not the first time he's done it, is the point. Like, he's done that exact thing multiple times before. Check this one out. Let's keep moving through his little press conference and see what else he had to say.
They're trying to sue us over noise violations. There's no noise ordinance, and they're mad because the traffic is too thick when we have special conferences. Like, 3 times a year?
3 times a year. That's not 0 times a year. Do you have any idea how much it costs to direct traffic for police? Apparently, the police have been keeping a tally of how much money they've been spending on overtime to help direct traffic to Greg Locke's events. And it's somewhere in the multi-hundreds of thousands, I think a couple $100,000, $250,000 or something for a single event that took place for all of the police out there to direct traffic around. Just keep listening, because it becomes clear in a second that he knows there's a problem. He knows this lawsuit is legitimate. He just doesn't care.
3 times a year? They said, well, on a regular Sunday, there's just too much traffic on the road. You ever shopped in Providence?
Okay, Providence is apparently a local strip mall that's pretty busy. Guess what? The infrastructure is built to handle a certain amount of traffic in Providence. The infrastructure is not built for that in Wilson County, where he lives. It's not built for that. You can't just send 6,000 cars over a road that isn't designed to hold it. You know what happens when, a bridge in New York City gets too much traffic on it? It collapses. This is real, okay? You can't strain infrastructure beyond what it can bear, or it will snap. And what's more, this guy's not even paying taxes, as far as I can tell. I can't verify this 100%, but he's a religious organization. The company being sued by Wilson County right now is a religious tax-exempt organization. He's not even paying Wilson County taxes for the work that they do on the infrastructure and the police department and everything else. Not even paying them. So Greg Locke is taking and taking and taking and taking, and Wilson County's even offering to move his whole setup somewhere else, and he's refusing. Does he not see that he's the bad guy in this situation, really?
You ever shopped in Providence?
An area that's designed for that kind of traffic, yeah. He's acting like this is a W for him.
They said, well, the infrastructure was not created for such growth. Well, first of all, we didn't know that we were going to grow so much as a local church. I'm not going to put out a sign that says, sorry, we'll fool, go to hell.
Then move your church. You know what Joel Osteen did when he outgrew the little church building that he had? He moved. He bought a convention center, a gigantic thing that he holds services in every Sunday. When you grow, you move to an area that has infrastructure that can support your church. You move to an area that has a building that can fit everybody, that has enough bathrooms in it that everyone can use, that has electricity that's run to everything. Like, the dude's operating in a circus tent. Seriously. Move. Why is he so dead set on operating here in this spot? Why? The infrastructure can't handle it, and he knows that.
Put out a sign that says, sorry, we'll fool, go to hell. But they're like, the infrastructure won't support it. Have you been in Mount Juliet? The infrastructure supports nothing in this community.
Exactly. Move. You just have to move. You have enough money. Move everything to a new location. Fundraise it if you have to. Whatever. Get out. You don't even have to fundraise. Wilson County offered to pay for the move. Are you kidding me? Just get out. Move. What's the problem here?
Have you driven through Lebanon? The infrastructure supports nothing in this community.
So he understands there's a problem, right? A minute ago, he said, "May God strike me dead if anything I say is misinformed," and then blamed everyone else for his wrongdoings. And now he's acknowledging that there are problems, seemingly, that there is something to the lawsuit. They said the infrastructure doesn't support what you're trying to do. You can't do this. And he says, yeah, I know it doesn't. I'm going to do it anyways.
I'm sorry we've grown. I'm not sorry we've grown. I'm sorry you're mad that we've grown. So
no one wants you to be like apologetic for growing. You just have to move to an area that can support it is all.
So fight against me, you can win. Fight against God, and you're sunk. You're done before you even start. You cannot win.
Okay, if you think so. But for the record, if I remember correctly, I think, isn't that what David Koresh said during the Waco, Texas thing? Didn't he say that exact thing? Something like it?
Fire broke out.
This far out in the country without fire hydrants, you have to haul all of your water. It's just a very bad scenario here at this point.
I'm pretty sure David Koresh said something to that effect at the time. Are you sure you want to fight this battle? He said a joke earlier, tanks roll in. You know, you're going to have to get me out of here by rolling in tanks and Cobra helicopters. That's not out of the question, Greg. That's on the table, really. I don't want that. Nobody wants that. Please just move. Here's the final clip I have in this compilation. Listen to what he had to say at the very end of his little sermon or press conference or whatever the hell he wants to call it.
So, Lord, whatever is on that list of whatever on that silly paperwork.
Talking about the lawsuit.
Whatever we're not correct about, correct us and we'll fix it.
Well, that's interesting. Didn't he just say, if what I'm going to say is misinformed, then strike me dead on this platform? That's kind of an odd thing to say after saying that, right? So he seems to recognize that there are problems, or that there could be problems, or maybe he misunderstands the situation. By the way, I didn't play all the parts where he doxed this guy, but he straight up doxed this guy all through it. The guy that is the head of development, something. Basically, the guy that said you can't build on your property because it's flooding things and it's causing a huge mess in the community. You have to stop. There's a stop work order on his property right now. There have been a bunch of complaints that came through, and he doxed the shit out of the guy straight up.
We want to be in compliance in the areas that are necessary and mandatory.
Well, these are pretty necessary and mandatory. You're flooding the entire area and wreaking havoc on the community.
Not in suggested areas of government overreach for which they have no authority.
What makes him think they have no authority? They're suing him. Of course they have authority to do this. There's one more kind of disturbing part. Listen to what he has to say. This is actually near the beginning of his talk, but it should kind of crystallize exactly how he views the situation and how he thinks others view him.
They're trying to drain our money. This is an unconstitutional behavior against a local house of worship. And there's not one church in this town that would stand for it. But when we don't stand for it, we're the Jim Jones Kool-Aid drinking bad guys all of a sudden.
Yeah. You are the Jim Jones Kool-Aid drinking bad guys. I hope I've established that through this whole video. This guy, honestly, seems like that's where it's headed. Truthfully. I'm not joking. I don't revel in that. In fact, I don't even want that, really. I want the guy to relocate desperately. But I seriously worry that he's not going to and is going to end up like this again.
Several hours later, a fire broke out.
This far out in the country without fire hydrants,
Please, Greg, relocate. For everybody's own good, please. If you think the state will not come in with tanks and helicopters, you're mistaken, bud. I've been studying destructive religions and cults long enough to know that it does not end well when cult leaders ride this into the ground. It does not end well. This is just one example, this Waco thing, in a long line of examples of a cult refusing to follow laws and regulations and rules in a society and paying the price for it. You know, the thing about cults is they don't usually fit into society exactly right. Almost never. Jehovah's Witnesses are very much outcasts in society. In fact, They have even paid the legal price in many situations for not fitting into society well. You know, they were jailed. They were arrested and jailed for not saying the Pledge of Allegiance, which, in my opinion, is a righteous cause. That's a good thing. Fight to have rights. There are countries around the world where military service is mandatory. You must serve in the military, and that's against the rules for Jehovah's Witnesses. You can't do that. So Jehovah's Witnesses have intentionally told their people to purchase cards, like bribe, members of the military to write fake cards saying that they did serve in the military even though they didn't. They usually don't quite fit into society right. Most cults don't. Usually with cults, they go one of two ways. Either they find a way to adapt for the most part, they find some way to roughly fit in, or they move to an area, a compound, where they can do what they want and they don't have to live in society. Jonestown is an actual location where the People's Temple purchased property outside the United States in South America, just north of Brazil, I believe. And they all flew there. There were like thousands of people who went there. I think maybe 900 or something like that, actually. And they lived there until the very end, till the bitter end. The People's Temple did not fit into society right, and they moved to get out. Greg Locke has tried to move to a new area where he could have his church and everything else, and he feels like he's being harassed by the government when in reality he's costing everybody around him massive amounts of money, and he needs to move to an area that's built for that kind of thing or create a compound that's completely self-sustaining and far away from neighbors. That's going to have to be his only option. Either embrace it, work within society, or separate from society completely. Those are his two options. He's at a crossroads. Now, Waco, Texas chose option number 3. Try to live in and be part of society, but refuse to follow its rules. That's the option Greg Locke is trying to choose right now. And it didn't end well for Waco, Texas. It's not going to end well for Greg Locke either. I wish the best for everybody there. I don't wish death on anybody. I hope they all make it out of this okay, but he is steering them right into a tree right now. Interesting fact of the Waco siege, the Branch Davidians started it in order to make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right. I didn't hear about that. That didn't surprise me at all. It wouldn't surprise me to learn that. Yeah, the Branch Davidians, especially David Koresh, had real deep problems, dude. Real deep problems as people. And David Koresh was doing some really questionable stuff with kids to my knowledge. And they still defend the guy to this day. I was just talking to Drake Eldritch about this earlier. They still defend him. They still believe that he was the new Messiah and knew what he's doing and all this other crazy stuff, man. If Greg Locke's getting raided, he'll hear a much different "go, go, go," while his congregation says no, no, no. Oh, absolutely, Pat in the chat, 100%. Yeah, there's a go, go, go guy in the background who yells that for some weird reason. I don't know why. It makes no sense to me, but he thinks they're not going to do it. He thinks the government isn't going to, force him to fit into society or leave. That's what the government has always done. Fit into society or get out. That's the rule. That's the law. Fit in or leave. Most cults choose to leave if they're truly destructive, really, really bad. Some of them try to fit in, but it doesn't ever fit quite right. So we'll see what Greg Locke chooses to do. Rose Red R10, I studied the Salem witch trials amateurly, but I looked intensively into this event. The behaviors and paranoia Greggy boys show here are extremely similar to how prominent figures acted during the trial. Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Greg Locke is obsessed with witches, believes there are witches around every corner. This is exactly how the Salem witch trials played out, exactly like this. This is the origin of the term witch hunt, this exact mindset right here. I don't know what he thinks he's doing, but it's not going to end well, whatever it is. He's not going to fit into society if he keeps going down this road. Doesn't seem like he wants to. So it's going to end badly, or he's going to sever his ties with society entirely. And either way, that's a bad ending, in my opinion. He'll never sever his ties to society completely, because that's how he brings in new members. He doesn't want to live alone on his own in the woods. If he wanted to live on his own in the woods and do his thing with his congregation, like Jehovah's Witnesses do at Bethel, or the Branch Davidians did at Waco or the People's Temple did at Jonestown, he would be fine. Go off on your own, buy a piece of property that's far away from anybody else where you live and your congregants come visit or whatever, and separate yourself from the county and the society and everybody. He doesn't want that. He wants the benefit that society gives, the police directing traffic for him and paying overtime, YouTube and Twitter and Rumble and everybody else hosting his video services and sending them out to everybody. He wants all the benefits that come with society, but he doesn't want to pay it back. He doesn't want to contribute to society or follow society's rules. That's really the hang up here. Add this to my super chat, including using the supernatural world as evidence. Oh, absolutely. Claiming that like they got a message from the supernatural world or whatever else. Yeah, 100%. You're right. This is playing out exactly the same way. He's just spiraling now, and it's really sad to see.